Rather than steal anyone's thunder, what I think we'd like to begin with is just going down the line, and if everyone could just share your name, your organization, which communities that you're covering, because not everyone covers the whole county. And I know some of you are wearing 2 hats here today, so if you wear multiple hats, that would be of importance for everyone to know. If you could just share that as information as well. We'll start here.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
Mine.
Well, I figure it helps to be able to speak into it. So my name is Chris Koch. I'm with the Essex County Long-Term Recovery Group. And my colleague Diego Arias is here as well. He's with the Ironbound Community Corporation. And we got a real strong partnership going on. He's also the treasurer of the, or not the treasurer, the secretary of the Long-Term Recovery Group. So we're working with the Ironbound Community Corporation with Myra Ramirez and Joe De La Fave. The Ironbound Community Corporation serves the Ironbound neighborhood in Newark, and the Essex County Long-Term Recovery Group, if you can guess it, is serving all of Essex County. The communities we're actually really dealing with are Newark, East Orange, and Irvington. That accounts for probably about 3/4 of our cases.
I'm Janet Sharma. I'm the executive director of the Volunteer Center of Bergen County and chair of the Bergen County VOAD, Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, and we have formed a long-term recovery committee. The primary areas of Bergen County that were damaged were Little Ferry and Moonachie, which are 30 miles from the shore, but the storm surge came up the Hudson River and its tributaries and broke some berms along the Hackensack River that flooded those 2 towns.
Good morning, I'm Candace Crane. I'm the Executive Director of the Middlesex County Long-Term Recovery Group. We also serve all of Middlesex County, but we focus on our 7 hardest-hit towns, which were South River, Sayreville, Perth Amboy, South Amboy, Woodbridge, and Carteret. But we do serve all of the county that needs help.
Good morning. I'm Bob Hodnett. I'm the chair of the Monmouth County Long-Term Recovery Group. I also, my day job is with Catholic Charities. I'm the administrator for the service area that oversees the statewide disaster case management program. The Long-Term Recovery Group serves all of Monmouth County. Of course, the hardest hit areas were along the shore and the Bayshore area along the northern part of the county.
Hi, my name is Maria LaFace. I actually wear 2 hats. I'm the Assistant Executive Director of Ocean-Monmouth Legal Services, and I am so honored to be the chair of the Ocean County Long-Term Recovery Group. Ocean County, I guess we call it Ground Zero, is where we serve, everywhere from Little Egg Harbor to, Bricktown and LBI to New Egypt. And so that is 33 municipalities and a lot of communities in need. That's what we do.
I'm Meghan Wren, and I'm chairing the Cumberland County Long-Term Recovery Group. And somebody mentioned that they were South Jersey, and they were talking about Ocean-Monmouth, and
Oh,
we call that
we're
Central.
Sorry, Central.
I drove 3.5 hours, or 2.5 hours to be here. And people from the state, literally, some departments have to get travel approval to come to meetings at our county. I mean, it's literally. But we have the Delaware Bayshore area was hard hit with Sandy. We also, not well known, but some of the inland communities in Cumberland County also had a derecho a few months before the storm, and there were some families that hadn't recovered. It wasn't a disaster, considered a disaster, so there were families that were still unrecovered that got hit again by Sandy, and so we do have some inland homes also with issues. But primarily it's the very rural Bayshore communities that we're dealing with. And I wear a second hat with a FEMA-supported recovery plan that was pulled together at Cumberland County, and I may say a few words about that as well.
Hello, my name is Clarence Alston. I'm the executive director of the Atlantic City Long-Term Recovery Group, as our vice chairman of our Long-Term Recovery Group made clear a minute ago. And we serve, of course, the Atlantic City proper. We don't get into the county. Those are, we work with them, of course, but we have our charges to deal with the families who are affected in the city. And we have been very fortunate, and it's helped us also to really focus our attention and focus our resources, because the area is so limited, and even though it's a concentration of challenges, we are able to get quite a bit done because of that demographic.
Okay, thank you all again. Welcome, everyone. What I think we'd like to turn to next is maybe if everyone could just share a little bit about how your organization is currently funded. What does that look like? How far is your current funding going to carry you? And at the same time, you might also mention, and there's been a lot of discussion about disaster case management. So I know some of the organizations that are here have their own on-staff disaster case management, where others are utilizing the resources of others. And I'm sure many of your funders are sitting in the room here. So if you could maybe just talk about what that looks like and where you might have concerns or where there are limitations or gaps. We'll start. We're just going to keep going left to right.
Okay.
Right to left.
Okay, so for the Essex Long-Term Recovery Group, we have a budget of $210,000. This is coming from the American Red Cross and from the United Church of Christ. And we have me, the disaster recovery coordinator, and we are working to get a part-time outreach coordinator. That's kind of the limitation of our staff. So a lot of the work we're doing is through outside partnerships. Now, one of the major partnerships, once again, is the ICC. They're working with a budget of roughly $1 million coming from Robin Hood, Freddie Mac, Capital One, Citibank, NeighborWorks America, the Charles M. Thienen Foundation, Prudential Foundation, Red Cross, Investors Bank, Sandy Recovery Fund, and they have more resources, and so they have the Director of Administration working on this, a Disaster Recovery Program Manager, they have a Resiliency Coordinator who's doing some case management, but also doing long-term planning and resiliency work, and they have some program specialists and family partners at some of the family success centers working with helping out some of the clients and helping them with their recovery.
In Bergen County, we sort of operated on the premise of create the myth and reality will follow. The Volunteer Center has a broad network of collaborative partners all day, every day, 24, whatever, you know what I mean. So after Hurricane Sandy, well, let me backtrack. After Hurricane Irene, which had hit Bergen County very hard, the VOAD had formed a long-term recovery group, but there were never any resources that came to help with case management or any kind of funding. So when Hurricane Sandy hit, we were all dressed up and we had someplace to go. So we had an organization. We had some really good collaborative partners, including people in the communities that were mostly impacted. And we were able to set up what we now have as a one-stop shop, where we have 11 case managers working with us. 5 are on our payroll. The others are with the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, Jewish Family Services, and so forth. We also invite every collaborator possible to take advantage of this, which is located in a church that had been flooded out and is now repaired. And so we provide information to the general public as well as to those impacted. We also provide workshops, legal services about foreclosure, about financing, about everything under the sun. We welcome all partners in, and it's been working pretty well. We've taken in so far, have pledges of over $7 million, including the SHRAP program, which we're managing, and I'm proud to say that nobody has to wait. We do it all by appointments, and we hope to pay people within 1 week of their appointment with us. So unlike in other counties, people don't have to wait. It's working well. Again, as I said, we created the myth and the reality. It really did follow. We've got a really good program going. We right now have done intakes on 900 and some cases. That doesn't count SHRAP, which right now we're up to, I think, about 200 cases for SHRAP, and they're growing by about 100 a week. We have 646 cases assigned to case managers, and we're working primarily, as I said, in the communities of Moonachie and Little Ferry. Do you want to talk about communication, or you want to get to that later?
Maybe we'll come back to that later. But if, as you're going down the line, if you could also talk about how far your funding is going to take you, like into what phase, because we're looking at a long-term recovery.
Yeah, it's not going to last very long. I mean, the people, housing in New Jersey costs a lot of money. And even though we have $7 million, that doesn't go very far. And people in Bergen County didn't necessarily qualify for the bigger grants where the houses were blown away. These houses were flooded, but they're still standing. And so a lot of people haven't qualified for the state grants. They're at their loose ends or at the end of their rope in terms of their own personal funding. And our funding is not going to go all that far. That's where we hope all of you will come in after this funding is depleted. People are still going to need to get their homes repaired because, like as other people have said throughout the morning, people are very proud. They've never had to ask for help, and they aren't asking for help until they're really desperate.
Thank you.
Bergen County does have a great model, and Middlesex worked well with them to try to kind of do what they were doing because it was working well. So we also have one location where we have our own case managers, and we also work closely with the case managers from Catholic Charities, Red Cross, The Future with Hope. We have probably a little over $2 million dedicated so far. And some of our major funders are American Red Cross, Robin Hood, Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund. We're also managing about almost $700,000 from the state of New Jersey through the Office of Aging, specifically to help people who are elderly or disabled and homeowners to repair their homes. Right now, our funding is going through early 2015. After that, we have some funding left for unmet needs, but we don't have any funding left at this point, for our staffing to keep our infrastructure in place. Along with myself and the case managers, we also have a construction coordinator who takes care of making sure that the damage to the homes is Sandy related and making sure that we're working with good contractors that are making good decisions and not getting caught up in these situations with contractors who are taking your money and heading to Florida or wherever they go. I don't know, the land of bad contractors. So we have somebody paying attention to that who is a general contractor who knows what he's doing. So, we have a small group of people working on this, but a very dedicated group of people working on it. And we will need funding for that past the spring of 2015 to continue this due to some challenges that are happening in our county we'll talk about later. But that's what we're dealing with right now.
Bob?
In Monmouth County, we have, the main funding sources are American Red Cross, Robin Hood Foundation, and Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Foundation. Budget of approximately, and my treasurer's here, I can correct me if wrong, a little under $4 million, I believe. And the time frame, I believe most of it runs out at the end of this year. Obviously, the end of this year will become a crucial time. We do have, most of our case management comes from other case management entities. We do have two case managers on staff to take that sort of overage. The amount of people that need case management in Monmouth County is staggering, and among all of the providers, there is still not enough. So we are constantly behind, certainly behind on doing that. We also have construction staff who are tremendously valuable in helping people make good decisions around their rebuild and making sure they're not being taken advantage of, and just coming up with a plan that makes sense and is most economical.
Maria?
Okay, we have a budget of $5,300,000 and some odd dollars, which seems like a lot of money, but it's not. Most of it is, our funders are American Red Cross, Community Foundation of New Jersey, Hurricane Sandy Relief Fund. I have a lot of funders. Lutheran Social Ministries, New York Life Insurance, OceanFirst Foundation, Ocean Inc., Robin Hood Foundation, and the United Way. We are very fortunate. We have a staff of 11 full-time employees. We have a director. We have an assistant director in charge of case management. We have a construction manager. We have a volunteer manager. And then we have 6 of our own disaster case managers on site working for us. And we have 3 new community outreach workers to get the word out about us being here and getting in more clients. Not that we need them, they need us, but, and finally, we have 1 donated full-time staff from Lutheran Social Ministries. So that is the extent of our staff. My fear when I was preparing for this, and not that Ocean's much different than everybody else, but we are beginning very large building projects. We are now seeing families who the disaster case manager has walked through their recovery. And when our funding runs out in it's a year or 18 months, I think it's the beginning of next year, what happens? Does a disaster case manager call up and say, sorry, I can no longer provide services? Does the project halt? When I thought about that, I thought, what a disservice, because we're going to leave the families probably worse off than we found them, because giving them hope of a solution and then pulling that rug out from under them, that was one fear that came to mind yesterday when I thought about the end of our funding. But to answer your question, it looks like the beginning of next year.
So, Cumberland County, our funding, we have about just a little under $500,000, and we have Robin Hood support, Hurricane New Jersey, Hurricane New Jersey, yeah, Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund support is a big piece of our funding. We have, oh, sorry. We have Future with Hope has been helpful. The diocese of the Episcopal Diocese, and we've had a couple of fairly significant, from our perspective, Rotary donations from local and regional districts. We have Future with Hope, Church World Service, United Church of Christ, but these are we have a project manager. We have a partnership with the Family Success Center of Commercial Township, which has been our saving grace, really. They've done amazing things and brought some additional funding through some support to get some additional family advocates. Ours is advocacy, not case management in our county, with our partnership with the Family Success Center. And we have we're about to hire a construction manager to assist. But our funds, it looks like, will be able to keep projects going for a little less than a year, and we assume through the surveys that we've done, we actually got, I'm told we got the most surveys back from the counties with our Family Success Center folks and the county working together. About 120 surveys came back from the state pushed survey process, and looking at those and our our cases that are in a backlog, it looks like we have about $3 million of construction needs that are not covered. And so we've actually, because we're not eligible for the REM, our families don't have any, we're not one of the 9 designated counties, and we're not, our families don't have any other resources aside from what the LTRG is doing. And so when our funds run out, we're hugely concerned about what happens to our families. And we are making a pitch. The freeholder director is, I hope today, sending a letter to the governor asking for funding of our housing rehab program that on small cities CDBG funds that are out there, that we could use those funds to be our sort of county-wide REM program, and something on the order of $3 million would get everybody in very good standing. So we're hopeful that we'll have some support there. And without that, I imagine we'll be knocking on lots of doors here, because we just, we don't know where this is going to come from. And in our community, there was a lot of discussion about suburban lack of infrastructure. Well, when you get to rural, we're finding people, I hate to use the word Appalachia, but it has, what that conjures up. We have families, we've gone into families and home situations where they've not gone to, there aren't service organizations for the most part in our area. A lot of the statewide agencies don't have representation in our county. And so we're uncovering issues that it's just appalling, and obviously predated Sandy, but then when you added Sandy to it, lots of these are low-lying communities, and they're just incredible situations that we're finding. And so we're trying to build through our partnership with Family Success Center, and I think they've been mentioned already as partners. When the DCM contract runs out, I think the Family Success Centers, at least in our county, they make a lot of sense to be a place for sustaining some of the issues that are being addressed now that haven't been addressed for many, many years. And so we're hopeful that by building the capacity of our family success and the long-term recovery, we don't plan to close our doors at the end of, when it looks like we're getting finished with Sandy recovery. I think we've uncovered a need in our community that goes beyond, and we're trying to build capacity for helping our community continue to come. We are the poorest county in the state, and at the bottom of the list for kids count, and just about every demographic that you can measure, we're at the bottom of, unless it's one that you want to be at the top. And we're at the top of lots of the bad lists and the bottom of all the good lists. So
Thank you.
So glad I don't live in South Jersey.
Okay, what we have is, we think is unique, but it's also been very encouraging with the progress that we've seen. We have, from our initial funders, we have approximately $2.5 million that we've been able to acquire. And those monies support construction materials that we purchase, of course. We have our own construction team, as well as our own case managers. And we have been trying actually to build on that concept of one-stop shopping. So our case managers stay with the clients from the beginning through the construction, and we do a lot of referral. We try to make sure that we're conscious of their needs as they come through and provide referral services for other areas they may have need of. We have our own volunteer center, so when our volunteers come in, we have accommodations for them, and we provide them with meals so that they are able to, they can stay there without having to leave once they have finished the work. The volunteer numbers range from 10 to 50 per week. We have now, throughout the month of May, we expect to have volunteers every weekend, and throughout the summer, it's also been very promising. Our major funders include the Red Cross, Robin Hood, of course, New Jersey Hurricane Sandy Relief, the Episcopal Diocese, and the United Way. These funders who support our construction, they sometimes place caps on on how the monies are used, so we have to plan and be very careful, especially as we put together our financial plans, so that we make sure we stay in line with their requirements. For example, some of them identify construction only and no case management. Others may be the opposite. Some of the funders do not allow expenditures for operational costs, which is, because we have our own team, has been a challenge for us. Where do we continue to provide funding for those operational costs, which have been very, very effective. It's interesting, too, that one of our major funders, of course, the funding will run out in November, and we're trying to look at some other flexible funding ideas that will help us to continue, because we've been very, very efficient and very, very effective. And what's interesting, too, I think, with our group is at least 25% of the people who work on our teams, our construction team, as well as our case managers, they live in Atlantic City and have been impacted. At least they have family members. So there's a sense of urgency to get things done and to try to help bring those families back to some normalcy. We have a construction manager, and we have a 5-member construction team. In addition, we have 4 case managers, 1 financial analyst, 1 volunteer coordinator, and of course myself as the executive director. And recently we received through AmeriCorps and Vista the services of a grant researcher who has already demonstrated that she's going to be very, very helpful in helping us find funds. We've also been very fortunate to have some support and some promising cooperation from our mayor and the city. That's one of the things we are reaching out to, as Meghan was mentioning about the CDBG. We actually did put together an application for that, and we have some feedback that we're hopeful to get some support in those ways. And the city also has a rehabilitation program to help some homeowners with their repairs for their homes. And we have been approached that we might be able to participate in trying to get that off and running for them, and collaborate to help the parents. Yeah, there are parents as well, but to make sure that we're able to work with them and use the experience that we already have to get the homes repaired.
Thank you all. Maybe, Bob, we can hop over to you. And if you could just share a little bit about Catholic Charities' role in the disaster case management. I think it helps to put it in context, the work that all of these organizations are doing. And just share some of the information about the current spending, when that program will go away, and the impact that might potentially have on the work that everybody here is doing.
Sure, Kathy. So just, this may be redundant for you, but just to make sure you're clear what case management is. Essentially, it is when you're working with a family, is it helping them identify what their needs are in terms of recovery from the storm, and identifying what their assets are. And the gap is around the gap, a long-term recovery plan has to be developed. So a plan that makes sense, that's workable, attainable. So it's the case manager's job to help the family come up with that plan and then make it happen. So there's a lot of advocacy, a lot of encouragement. I was just on my way here, leaving my office, and somebody stopped me, and she said, "That's it. I'm not going back to SHRAP. I have so many needs, but I've had it." Okay, and she works for me, so I had to encourage her. I said, "No, we're going to get somebody to help you to get through it. You can't pass that up." But it happens. It really happens a lot. I'm sorry for that feedback. So that's what case managers do. They help those folks that just, for whom either this is brand new and they're overwhelmed by it, or they, they're functioning with somewhat marginal going in. So they're incredibly crucial. So the state case management contract is FEMA money that goes through the State Department of Family Development. Catholic Charities was awarded the contract, and we have approximately 52 case managers, disaster case managers, covering the entire state, the areas that you heard about today that are in need. We have served so far 3,300 people. Right now, an active caseload of around 1,900 people. The interesting thing is that the numbers when we started, it was started in April and then really kicked in, but by the time we got organized, hired staff, and so on was like July. The numbers of referrals coming in monthly were around 800. They dipped down in the winter to maybe 150 a month, and now they're back up over 200 a month. So it implies that the need is growing in some ways, or reoccurring, and there is a need to continue this longer. The contract is due to end October 31st. This is by legislation that allows funding for 2 full years from the date of the storm. There is a possibility of an extension for 3 months maximum. That would take it to January 31st. So we are applying for the extension, obviously, and now trying to project what will it be, what will it look like at the end of the contract. So one of the things we're looking at is what is the length of stay per outcome. So what is the length of stay for somebody that needs to rebuild their home? What is the length of stay for somebody who is a renter and needed to be in stable housing, and so on and so forth. And that'll give us a better idea, given the numbers coming in and matching that up to their needs. It'll give us a better idea of what is needed in terms of case management past next January. And we think it'll be significant. And we've been asked, the state asked us to go to long-term recovery groups and asked, how are you going to pick that up when we leave? And then since I wear both hats, it's like, oh, I know the answer to that. We don't have an answer to that. So it's becoming, though, it'll become a crucial situation in the next few months.
I think this is one of the red flag issues that I know that many of the long-term recovery groups are worried about, how that's going to transition, what's going to happen to all of those families that have access to a disaster case manager now that maybe are in the middle of their recovery or just need that ongoing support. So this is something, if your ears are peaking, this would be one that I'd be writing down and saying we need to come up with a solution for this problem. Maybe we could talk about some of the commonalities that we see in household recovery. Lack of insurance, FEMA reimbursements, without getting too redundant. Maybe Janet, what you see in Bergen, we'll start there.
Well, you just said them. Insurance people are still appealing their insurance settlements. They're still appealing FEMA settlements. With regard to the state grants, there are just so many different variables there. Mostly they were denied, or we have 400 mobile homes in Moonachie, and they did not think they were eligible, most of them. We told them to apply anyway, but for many of them, they just missed the deadline. So we've appealed for the state to put more money from the CDBG grant to specifically help mobile homeowners. But that's mainly what we're seeing. It's frustration with the paperwork. I mean, the case files are this tall and growing because of all of the different appeals and all of the different things they need to apply to the various state grant programs, plus the different programs that we encourage them to apply for at the county level and at the state level that are not necessarily Sandy related, but they're things that they qualify for because of their family circumstances.
I know a couple have mentioned SHRAP. Does that seem to be a common thread in each county?
Yeah, SHRAP is a problem too because there's no they say there can be no means test. So somebody who has an income of $200,000 is just as eligible as somebody who is living below poverty, and there's no way to exclude them, even though you know they don't necessarily need the funding, but they qualify for it. So it's very frustrating. And it also, we know that a lot of counties, they're not run through long-term recovery committees in most cases. They're run through another county organization. And the waits are just interminable for people. As Mrs. Schaefer was saying, they had to give up a day of work to go wait in line at SHRAP. That's just outrageous. So we've tried to streamline that and make it so people have appointments. They may have to wait a couple of weeks for an appointment, but at least they don't have to give up a whole day to get the SHRAP settlement on board.
Could someone talk about where the SHRAP program is? I know there are a lot of families that are waiting a decent amount of time for their rent or mortgage payment to be covered. What are the solutions or the alternatives that long-term recovery groups can provide while families are waiting for that SHRAP to kick in? Do you have the resources to do that?
You know, Kathy, just to follow up on the SHRAP problems, because I get to see it at the long-term recovery group, but then I get to see it in court and the consequences to the clients. I'm in landlord-tenant court every Monday in Ocean County, and many of the people that I'm representing are relying on SHRAP to make those rental payments. And so we are trying to make the argument to the court that this is similar to rental assistance and that the client should not be evicted for SHRAP's failure to pay, but it's very difficult. Clients are being evicted or potentially being evicted, because we're negotiating for additional time, because of the delays in payment. Then the late fees are tacked on, then the attorney's fees are tacked on. And then in the foreclosure world, people who are relying on SHRAP to make their payments, if those payments are a month or 2 months or 3 months behind, well, then we're talking about the potential for a foreclosure process or the fees and penalties and everything that attach. So it's frustrating for the clients on the front end. I get it. I think for us, it's 6 months, and you're in trouble because now I'm going to send Ocean County residents to you since there's no waiting list.
They have to make an appointment.
That's right. The one beauty of SHRAP is they can go anywhere to apply. So there's that frustration up front, and then the consequences on the back end are significant. So I just needed to follow up on the SHRAP. For us, I know that we are willing at the long-term recovery, Ocean County Long-Term Recovery Group, when you get to an unmet needs table, which we hold every Wednesday and which I'm excited to share with you at the end, that's my coup de grace, when you get there, we will pay what you need. And if you are waiting and you have an appointment for SHRAP, 3 months down the line, but you're facing potential homelessness or a potential utility shutoff or a potential harm in any way, I know that my group of stakeholders at the Long-Term Recovery Group in Ocean will just say, I'll pay. And so that's the way we're approaching it. But it's not the best use of our resources because there is money there for that need. It's just not getting out quickly enough. But our goal is to prevent harm to clients. And
Right.
so
And
that's
when-
what we do.
When we do the intake for SHRAP, when people call to make an appointment, we'll ask them if they're in imminent need of foreclosure or eviction, and we'll move them up to the top of the list so that won't happen. But we did have a case just last week where the bank returned the check to us. We were paying 5 months back mortgage, and the bank said no, they had missed the cutoff, and they wouldn't accept it, so they were going to be foreclosed.
Oh, goodness.
I think the important thing to note about SHRAP is it's a county-by-county situation.
Yeah.
And so, in Middlesex Catholic Charities Diocese of Metuchen handles that grant and does an excellent job. There's a few hiccups, as there always are, no matter what, with a large situation, but they have not too long of waiting lists. We've had very, very, very few clients have any problem with having things not paid for a couple of months or anything like that. And if they are, we do have the resources, especially if they're of a vulnerable population. We will step up and pay whatever it is in lieu of SHRAP. We don't have to wait for SHRAP. But I do think it's important to realize that although it's state money, it's being distributed through the counties on a county-by-county basis, and they get to choose who's managing the grant through a bid process or RFP or whatever they decided to do. And so, depending on where people live, they may be getting better or worse SHRAP service. I just don't want to make sure the whole program doesn't seem like it's the devil.
Well, when it comes to Essex County, SHRAP only opened up in maybe the end of February, and they're already talking about how there's not enough demand, and they're talking about pulling the money back.
Really?
Yeah. We haven't had a chance to really get many people through there. The process is long. It's not easy for the clients, and they're saying, well, the money isn't needed here, when really it is, because Essex County, look, you don't think of it, it wasn't on the news as much. The Ironbound was flooded and had serious damage there, but a lot of what we're finding is people's houses were damaged with wind and with trees, and at first it's not a big deal, but now there's mold, there's leaking roofs, ceilings are collapsing, there's electrical problems. These are serious hazards, and these are people who, it's a poorer community. There's not the resources to get these things fixed. And so we had a late start, there's serious demand for it, and they're already pulling it back. And so we're trying to put pressure to keep that money in Essex County, but it's been a major challenge.
We had the same issue in Cumberland County where it started late in February, and the first people that went had zero success at getting through the process, and it wasn't until the family success advocates went with them to every appointment that there was any success. And with that lag of it looked as though there was not the need. The people were turned away with erroneous answers by the staff members at the county. The county was not prepared to administer the program. There were, people that went there. A man took a day off of work, went with an advocate, and was told that for an appointment, and was told that his person wasn't there, and they told him to come back another day. His advocate said, no, I want to talk to your manager, we need this fellow took a day off work, and ended up dealing with him. But if his advocate hadn't been there, he would have walked away and never come back. But the program, now they're saying that we didn't have enough demand because they weren't processing anybody, and they're talking about taking funds away from Cumberland also.
So we're kind of starting to touch on what a lot of the challenges are, and it could get really depressing the more you hear about some of the challenges. So maybe we could switch gears just a little bit, and we certainly want to know what some of those other unique challenges are you have in your counties. But even more importantly, we want to know what solutions you're seeing. What is working well in your county? What kinds of projects can funders be investing in or getting more engaged in that might help to improve the situation to a great degree? And I think probably easiest to just go straight down the line. So challenges, very short and sweet, but solutions.
Okay, so like I said, in Essex, it's a lot of wind damage, a lot of roof damage, and mold and those issues. And the biggest challenge we're having is we want to get volunteers in to help with some of this construction, but you have the problem of mold. It's toxic. There's a major liability. Roofing. That's a dangerous thing to do. Once again, liability issues. And then you get into the housing age of the houses in Essex County, and there's the possibility of lead in the paint, there's possibility of asbestos. So there's a lot of challenges just trying to get volunteers in. And so one thing we're looking to do is try to get contractors for the work that actually requires a contractor. And one thing we're running up against is finding insurance to prevent any sort of liability issues on our part. So that's a big challenge. In terms of things that are working, the SSBG program for the elderly and for the disabled is helping a lot. We've got a great partner in life management, and they are working on a lot of cases, helping these people get the construction necessary to repair their houses. For other cases, we're looking into different strategies. One idea we're thinking about is setting up a sort of adopt-a-house program where there's certain characteristics of the house, what it's facing, what the estimate for the repair is, and see if someone can adopt that house, pay for that construction rather than a large grant, breaking it down into smaller grants, maybe finding a greater pot of resources.
Thank you, Janet.
The biggest challenge, I think, is helping people winnow their way through all of the different grant programs. It takes a long time, and insurance and FEMA, as I mentioned. What's working for us is really communication. What others are having trouble with, I'm not saying we've solved it because people are still coming in for the first time. But for one thing, we're using the FEMA list. We're sending blast emails to the 14,000 people in Bergen County who are on the FEMA list. We send them once a month or more if needed, a list of what all we're providing that month, of any workshops that we're providing, of different state grant programs, of what they need to get certified for the different programs with links to different things. So it's sort of, again, one-stop shopping by email. For people who didn't have an email address, we send them a postcard and tell them to come in so we can help them. And that's been working. We also, Help and Healing was a big loss when they left. They had done wonderful service, but we started our own program called BEST, because Bergen's not shy, We call it Bergen Emotional Support Team. And we're using a lot of the same people who worked with Hope and Healing and are now volunteering for our BEST team. They're going door to door sometimes, or they're available at the Recovery Center to help people with their emotional needs. We also use the mayors. The mayors are very good at communicating in their towns, and we use them. We also have, I think it's the Elks and the VFW have those, well, you might call them ugly, but those signboards that flash phone numbers. They have our phone number, and they put that on. And we also use the local senior centers, churches. We get the word out as best we can anywhere. And again, we're fortunate that we have a one-stop shop, so people only have to call one phone number or come to one address, and they'll get the help that they need, hopefully.
Thank you, Janet.
In Middlesex, we have a lot of the same issues that other people have mentioned, but one unique thing we're working with is through the Department of Environmental Protection Blue Acres buyout program. We have hundreds of homes that are either being bought out or have the potential to be bought out. The city of Woodbridge is on their second round of buyouts, and if all goes well, about 180 to 190 homes will be offered buyouts. Now, being offered a buyout and being able to take a buyout are two very distinctive things. The city of Sayreville has been offered buyouts. They have but still have hundreds of people on the list who are still waiting to know if they'll be eligible. Same thing in South River, South Amboy, and the Lawrence Harbor section of Old Bridge. So with these hundreds of homes that are waiting for the buyout process, if they're lucky enough for the state to approve them and be made an offer, many of them can't take it. They can't take it for financial reasons. They were, as we talked earlier, underwater before the storm happened, and now they're being offered, $200,000 in a home that they still owe $300,000 on. The DEP has been working with the Department of Banking and Insurance to work with the banks to get them to take short sales, but then you've walked away from your home that maybe you've lived in for 10 or 15 years with a short sale. So now you have nothing. You take the tax hit usually of the short sale. You take the credit hit of a short sale. And now you have a family with nowhere to live and no equity that you were trying to build in this home. So some people, even though they technically could take the buyout and take the short sale, are choosing not to because at least they have somewhere to live. They will continue paying, continue staying. And the way the process works is once they turn down the buyout offer, they're excluding themselves from any other future state help. So even if they were in the RREM process to raise their home, and that's what most of them would like to do, obviously, they can't get that. Once you say no to the state, and the state's theory, and it's not wrong per se, but the state's theory is we want to get you out of harm's way. Once we've made you an offer to get you out of harm's way, if you turn down our offer, we're not going to do anything to encourage you to stay. So it's right and wrong, I guess, depends on how you look at it, but it's fact, it's what's happening. So we have lots of people who, and we have people who are choosing not to take the buyout for emotional reasons. We have lots of older people, especially in Sayreville, who have, lived in those homes for 50 years. They were the first ones that built the home on the street, and by golly, they're going to die in that home on the street. That's what they're going to do. And we need more assistance to work with those families to help them. And maybe it means they really are going to stay. But then let's get the money together to raise their home. So when the next one does come down Weber Ave in Sayreville, which is likely to happen, they're out of harm's way. They're 80, 90 years old, and they're not trying to run from a storm. So even though the state's saying, we won't encourage you to stay, we'd like to be able to do everything we can once they've made that final decision to stay there to make sure that they're not going to be harmed by the next storm. And the other half of that is that the hundreds of people who are still waiting to hear if they're going to even get made an offer, a lot of them haven't repaired their homes because they're waiting to see, because they don't want to spend a bunch of money into a home that's going to get knocked down. We as Long-Term Recovery Group are also not doing any construction work on those homes because we don't think it's the best use of our resources to spend $20,000 or $30,000 in a home that will get turned back into parkland or marshland or whatever it might be. So they're not living in the homes. They're paying their mortgage, they're paying their rent. We're helping with those things, but we're still waiting. So if they never get an offer, or the state finally says, no, we're not going to target your area, that's going to be maybe hundreds of homes that are all at that point going to say, okay, now we're ready for your help. Now we have our FEMA money or our insurance money, but we still need more help from you. And it could be a year from now before we ever get that all figured out because the state's not, at this point, willing to say who, if they've applied, they're not willing to say that they won't take them. They're waiting for that process to happen. So it's a somewhat unique challenge in Middlesex because there are some homes in other counties that are getting bought out, but not at the level that Middlesex is. So I would say that's our most unique challenge and our most unique need for funding is to help those families that are going to not take the buyout for whatever reason and or not be offered it and need help in a year or more from now.
Thank you. How about you, Bob?
In Monmouth, the most significant challenge is certainly just the pure numbers. It's the second hardest hit county. And the complexity of the rebuilding that needs to be done this was mentioned earlier, how complex it is. And third, the lack of affordable housing. Moms is very expensive to live. Some of the things that have worked well, one is the mental health response in Monmouth County has been outstanding, coordinated through the long-term recovery group and funded by many of you here. The mental health response, the number of mental health practitioners involved, amazing, and I think doing great work. Another positive response, we are building, the long-term recovery group is building a 150-bed volunteer housing center. It's almost completed, and we'll be able to house large numbers of volunteer groups who want to come in. This will bring down the cost of much of the rebuilding, and it'll be, exciting. It actually has the potential to be a shelter in the future. Should there be a future disaster, it's going to be that well designed. A couple of things that what I would see as things I'd like to see happen, solutions. One would be great. This is like I know it's closing the barn door too late, but greater coordination between the government and non-government organizations, and including funders. The coordination of this is really hard. There's no question about it, and each disaster is unique. But we need to do a better job of timing of funding, having the funding matched to where the needs of the people are when they're there. And it's been very difficult. Most of us in the nonprofits work around the government. They do what they want to do. We work around it and try to make it happen. That needs to be changed. And the other somebody mentioned this, but one-stop resource centers absolutely work, and I think we should wholly support that. And just lastly, this, as we pointed out, the need for funding for both case management and unmet needs past next year, past the end of this year. It's really important. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Maria?
Okay, we share the same challenges as Monmouth. Numbers are bigger, but one area is we have a very large senior population in Ocean County. I think they say it's the second largest outside of Florida. And they have very unique challenges, and they have unique needs. One story I'll share, and I know I have to go quick because I saw the little pink dress come over, is a senior that we were working with who had lost everything in the storm and lost his wife shortly thereafter, was on the REM waiting list, and that list took too long for him, and he decided that there was no reason to live. And so we lost him. And so they're a very vulnerable population. They've lost their memories. They've lost much more than maybe somebody, a little younger. That's a challenge for us. The solution, though, and I may sound like a little, vain, but I think we are the solution. I think that the long-term recovery group is really the solution to solving this problem. To answer the woman from Johnson & Johnson, we are the one-stop shop, not for all social needs. I still think in our county, in all counties throughout New Jersey, you need a one-stop center for social needs, poverty issues in general. But we are the one-stop center for disaster recovery needs. You walk through the door, you're assigned a disaster case manager. That disaster case manager assesses your situation, taps into every resource. And I'll give you an example. I'm a lawyer from Legal Services. My disaster case manager can call me and say, I've got a deed issue that I've got to straighten out before they're eligible for this state grant program. Well, I'll straighten it out. So once they navigate all of the available resources, then they then identify this unmet need. Then we have the construction manager who goes out and he assesses the damage to the home. He comes back with a scope of work. He shares it with the DCM, they share it with the client, and they come up with a recovery plan, which then we turn over to volunteers from all over the country, some outside of the country, who we coordinate and say, okay, you need to be on Main Street today because we're building this. And then if there is that unmet needs, and what is so humbling to me and what I'm so proud of is every Wednesday we have an unmet needs table, and I invite anybody in this room to come because it has reignited my faith in people and community. You sit around the table, a DCM, a disaster case manager, will walk in. They will present a case about their client. This is their situation. This is what they've spent. This is what they need. I can fully recover them with this. The Salvation Army, I'll do the roof. The Lutherans, I'll do the flooring. Long-term recovery, I'll cut a check for $10,000 here. And every stakeholder around that table is cutting checks or offering services. And it's just, that's the solution. You know, I have to say this and then I'll let it go. Early, we all thought, you know, the federal government and the state government dollars, that they were going to be the answer. But I remember right after the storm when they were all fighting in Washington about how much money we needed and whether we should get it and blah, blah, blah. And Robin Hood comes into Ocean County and Monmouth County, gets on a tour bus, views the devastation with us, and says, okay, what do you need? That's the answer. It's that generosity, it's that compassion that's going to fix our county, our state, our communities. It's, you know, the state may help, sometimes it may not, but I think we are the solution. And when I say we, I mean, you know, everybody participating in the recovery process.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
So the challenges in Cumberland County, I think I've outlined pretty well. The poverty, lack of resources and agencies. I don't think I mentioned it's a food desert, but there's that. Literacy, we're the bottom of the list for literacy. And all of those ancillary sort of issues that are just grouped with all those things, and transportation, and, you know, families that aren't, I don't want to say capable, but have difficulty resolving their own issues, are many of our challenges. Some of the solutions that we've come up with as an LTRG, we have a public relations committee that's been very engaged, and actually some Occupy Sandy members have participated in that and been very helpful. It's very grassroots oriented, though we've used the emails, you know, the same, you know, regular newsletters, emails to the FEMA list, and developing people who weren't on the FEMA list, with people still coming in, door to door, just really very engaged on the grassroots. And, you know, the tone was set with the power of we this morning, and I think that it's been just, as you said, you know, just reinvigorating with the people that have come to the table, and the neighbors helping neighbors. You know, it wasn't recognized that there was a need in Cumberland County for a long time, and a lot of people kind of pitched in and made things happen for their neighbors. And, you know, the local churches, and on a very, very grassroots level, people have come together. And that's been something that is brand new in my experience. You know, 30 years working along the Bayshore, people are very kind of about their town. You know, there's home rule, there's all these things that, you know, people haven't been working with each other. But I've really, you know, I don't mean to sound Pollyanna, but the openness that people have for working together has been amazing, and it gives me hope for the future. And one of the things that FEMA helped us do was put this plan together. I gave away the good copy. This is it. There's actually a nicely printed spiral-bound version, but and it's on the web if you're interested at discoverdelawarebay.org with a recovery plan section. But it's comprehensive, and I was talking to our Family Success Center director this morning, and, you know, in preparation for some of the key points to mention here, and really the fact that everybody is working together and looking for long-term solutions, and that we have this plan, you know, 26 points, 26 projects, including a lot of social service issues that will help really shore up the community for the future, with a wraparound approach, you know, trying to address the transportation and the economy. And I have to say, it's you know, it's kind of the elephant in the room, and it's where we have some plans for how to improve the economy in the area that we're serving. But the support group that we pulled together we weren't eligible for Hope and Healing because we're not one of the 9 counties. So, but we did have some volunteer efforts from Hope and Healing and some other efforts in that direction. But we pulled together a support group where families are encouraged every other week to come to the Fortescue Chapel, and there's food, there's discussion, there's sharing, there's you know, getting information out about workshops and things that are upcoming. But those folks are being encouraged to have work parties themselves, so they're helping each other with projects, little ones that are, you know, niggling little projects that are still troubling folks. So they're building a community garden and just a lot of things where the communities, it's really, I see a lot of hope in that. And the Family Success Center, the partnerships that are being built now, I think are helping with the capacity for moving forward for the future. So I really feel, that obviously there are lots of needs still there, but I'm hopeful about the relationships that are being built with the people that are on the ground to be able to help each other, and with infusion of relatively small amounts of investments, that the community has a path and a plan for recovery, and I think that's really hopeful for me.
Thank you so much. And before the last guy goes, I know a girl in the pink dress over here is going to get me.
You can't miss her when she comes over.
She's lurking. I heard her ahem. I'm like, she's coming for me. So if we could just wrap it up and just.
Sorry.
Oh,
Nee.
okay. That was just a subtle ahem. Okay. All right.
When the dress starts going like this.
I'm waiting for the electroshock. Okay, so 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay, no pressure, no pressure.
5 minutes.
Okay, Atlantic City is very unique. It's interesting, you take a look at the casinos and it looks as if everybody is happy and, there's plenty of fun and money. However, the people that we have been able to help and serve are on the west side of the casinos, away from the water. What we've seen a lot of, with the age of the infrastructure in Atlantic City, including some of the buildings and the homes, has really created some problems. We see a lot of sewage issues when we go in to try to repair the homes. We have a number of course, the roof damage, but many of those people do not have insurance or they were underinsured. And so it's creating a tremendous challenge for us. What we're finding is that in those cases, we are their source. So the money that we're able to get from our funders, they're not matching. We're having to take care of the entire process as much as possible. A lot of elderly. Unfortunately, 2 of our clients died before we were able to finish the home because it was taking so long for us to get to them. We have now 167 people who are waiting. If we had the funding, we could get started on their houses. A lot of rental property, and we also have some low income, a lot of low income, a lot of single mothers, single female family homes, and so again, we're trying to reinforce and concentrate on all the other issues pertaining to that. We found that within some of these houses, when we go in, they don't need necessarily or even want the construction first. They really want a friend. And so our case managers have been able to establish that, kind of bring down the tension, build some relationships with them, and has helped them to get prepared. Okay, I guess I'm about 2 minutes left. Some of the other unique challenges. When we use the funds to try to build or construct or repair the houses, it puts a strain on our other resources, on what we're doing to support our construction team, our case management, because as I said, we have our own teams. And so we have all of these overheads. We've got to have insurance for our board. We've got to have insurance for our vehicles. We've got to have insurance for any of the volunteers. We cover the information or the projects where we have our center. So it's straining there. But all of that is to try to make sure that we are able to help the clients. And we think that our model is effective, but it is straining and it is challenging us on whether or not we have to reevaluate it. We feel that if we can continue to work with the city, if they will help us to be a part of what they're planning in terms of recovery for the city, that we'll be able to function better as we continue to get funding and support from the outside agencies and our funders. But we think we're going to need to be aligned and really work closely with the city to survive if we're going to be viable and we're going to get something else done. And we've also found that we need to have client counseling. They need a lot of emotional support, but they need just sometimes some very practical advice and with people they trust to be able to recover and to be able to get their families going in the right direction as well. And the last thing is we need flexible funding. We need to be able to make the plans and address the issues as we see fit without having to worry about if we're going to violate what the guidelines that some of our funders have set up for. We respect that, and we certainly are grateful for them. But sometimes it just puts us in sort of a challenge that we might meet all of the needs.
Very good. Thank you all. One more thought?
I just wanted to say, one of the supplies that we found out that we needed early on and that we continue to replenish is Kleenex. Because every time clients come in, it's dredging up memories that are horrific. And every day it's like it just happened. So that is something that we're all dealing with. I mean, for the people that we're helping, it's immediate. It hasn't gone away, even though it's 18 months away. And what really pissed me off, pardon the language, I was talking to a state person about setting up a statewide something or other, and I mentioned something about Sandy, and she said, "Oh, aren't we over that now?" And this was a state employee. I could not believe it.
I could believe it. I would just point out, in your packets, they put a lot of time and effort. On the right side of that packet are presentations that they would have loved to have given with flashy PowerPoints and everything, but we told them try to keep it short and sweet. So there's a lot of great resource information in there about the efforts that they're doing. So I want to, if we could just give them a round of applause and thank them all. Questions? Okay. So we do have time for questions, Nina tells me. So we'll start over here with Edie. Okay, and then we'll follow it up.
Hi, this is for Maria. Do you think that your model is scalable? How many people do you serve? How long do you think your funding that you have now will last in terms of this? Or do you foresee an end to this as a result of this working? I come out of the 9/11 community. Our entire way of doing things has been based on listening to the Canner families and determining what they need and letting that guide you as you go forward. So I applaud all of you for what it is that you do. But if you have something that you think works and you are basically the one-stop shop, as Janet, you have identified yourself as well, is it scalable?
I think it is. I mean, we have to be very creative, and one of the things that I didn't talk about because of the time limitations is a pilot project on modular homes and how we can make that cost effective and we can get people into safe and sanitary and affordable housing at a much reduced cost. And when I originally thought somebody said modular homes, I went, oh, modular homes. They're actually very lovely. They come in, and I don't want to go on and on. I can talk about it with you later. But so we have big projects coming on now. It's a good question you're asking me. We've been able to help several people. We are going to run out of money for the bigger projects. And so we've started to think outside the box on what is more cost efficient, because I learned if you drop a modular home and then you have skilled volunteer laborers and you have other volunteers who are going to do the trim and the insulation and all of that, wow, you're going to get an incredible home at a very, very low cost. So I think we just have to think of more creative ways. And I, keep begging for money. Because the problem is if we don't, if this recovery is stopped short, the damage that we create as a result of stopping it short, I think is going to be worse than what we started with. A bunch of hopeless people with half of their homes. So I hope that answers your question. I guess the answer is I guess I don't know exactly, but I hope.
And I'd say, yes, it's scalable, but it's going to cost a lot of money. Any way you look at it, you're talking about building houses and repairing lives, and that costs money, no matter who does it. I mean, the reason we're nonprofits is because nobody wants to pay for it. If it were something that somebody could make money out of, they would have invested in it and made a way to get it to happen. But we're doing work that nobody else wants to do.
No, I get that, but I think underlying, the money issue is always going to be
Always.
The money issue is always going to be the money issue. I mean, we're the funders in the room. And, you know, in my case, I'm a nonprofit and a funder, but we're the funders in the room. And so we get the money issue, but underlying the money issue is the systemic changes that need to happen.
Right.
There's a degree of frustration, and I said this to Nina before, that I have, because I've seen it in Katrina, I've seen it in 9/11, I've seen it in Sandy, I've seen it in Oklahoma, you know, I've seen it in Sandy Hook, I've seen it in Aurora. We can go on and on and on. The conversations are unfortunately the same.
Right.
They have not changed in terms of what the holes in the system are. So my point is that systemically, what can we all do to make that one model that is scalable? And that's what I'm looking at. So,
Yeah.
you know, yes,
Statewide.
the money is there. The problem will always be money.
Right.
But if we're systemic in the way that we look at it, and everybody isn't fighting for the same pool of money.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
we can all sit here and say the problem is marketing and PR. We can all sit here and say the problem is information. We can all sit here and say the problem is communication, because it is. Because it is. You know, but if we were all funneling and channeling into the same model, then we could all say, okay.
Yeah, and
you
that's
know,
what we
you
were
go
hoping the state.
here, you go here, and then from there you funnel down. So I'm looking and listening to all of you saying, is there an answer in all of this? If Maria has an answer, if Janet has an answer, it's a combination of all of you. You take all the little pieces. How can we make a systemic change? So that's why I'm
Good
asking,
question.
is this
That is a
scalable?
really good question.
It is a good question. And, you know, New
It's
Jersey
been
also
my
has
lifelong
the,
goal in Ocean County.
You and me both. I've
and
been,
New Jersey
you know,
is so
13 years.
balkanized.
I think we have a
Great
question over back,
question.
two
Thank
questions
you.
in the back corner over here.
Hi, how are you? My name is Diego Arias. I work closely with Chris. I'm on the Essex County Long-Term Recovery Group, and I'm also the program manager for ICC. About the point in terms of frustrations or things that have to be changed, one of my biggest frustrations with my position and the people who need help, and I can only speak for Essex County, is the lack of communication and, I would say, desire to assist those who are suffering from this as quickly as possible. I've had to literally knock violently on doors of government offices and nonprofits to get my client to have his or her appointment respected or to have their voice even be heard. You know, there are challenges in Essex County. You have, my experience, a lot of single African-American mothers who didn't have any information, had little resources to begin with, and are now forced to have to pretty much beg for an appointment at a government office or at a nonprofit sometimes. And then the elderly of all races have been hit systemically and have been hit with lack of, they're not on the internet, they're not on Facebook receiving updates from a Facebook page that the state set up, or they're not watching TV, at least not the cable news that other people watch, so their access to resources, their information is impossible. I've literally driven all around Essex County, meeting with the elderly. I'm not going to ask them to come to my office. I think that's ridiculous. I drive there personally. I know if they're 85 years old and they're in a wheelchair, they're not going to get in a car and meet me. So it's these things that, I guess my question to everybody here is, what has been your approach in dealing with these, I would say, failures on behalf of some agencies, both state and private, to really get money out or to really just get the ball rolling? Because I've been in situations where I've gone to meet with an agency and they tell me, I've heard things like, well, one of the reasons we have to be so careful with the way we spend our money is because 80% of, this is an actual number I was getting, 80% of people that come to us for help are really trying to game the system. And I said, game the system? I said to him, I was like, you're treating this like it's a fraud prevention program. And so basically what I'm trying to say is, what has been your approach at getting the ball rolling? Because sometimes my frustrations are we have to spend our money as quickly as possible, but there are other resources available, and I can't tap into them because I feel a lack of interest in doing this effectively. And there are some people who are very passionate about it, and then there are those who are, I don't feel have the same interest in getting everything moving as quickly as possible.
Johnny, you want to take that one?
I can answer a part of it. I can't begin to speak for other organizations. All I know is that in the long-term recovery committee, that what we're doing in our recovery center is triage. We're trying to find out when we do an intake who needs what and how badly do they need it. So we try to effect triage and then help people that way. But whether we're 100% effective, I'm sure we're not. We don't have enough staff to handle it all. We don't have enough money to take care of everything, but we try to do what we can. Again, I can't speak for anybody else.
I can bring a little different perspective because I do have the ESQ at the end of my name. So sometimes, you know, I'll request fair hearings if it's a government denial, or just writing a threatening letter may get movement for a particular client. Not always, but sometimes throwing out the possibility of a discrimination lawsuit or a improper denial works. 50-50.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap that up, and
Here she
maybe
goes.
everyone will be staying around and ask questions afterwards.